What's up, Al Report fans? It's your boy Big Rob Suave, back for another week of my top five. I told y'all I'm upholding that promise. Doing this every week. It's playoff time, so we get into it. Last week was a phenomenal week. The Al Report was at the Steelers game. I don't know if y'all seen it or not, but yeah, we was there for Baltimore's victory over Pittsburgh. It was a good game. It was rainy. It was cold, but it was worth it. But anyway, let's get to it. Number 5, let's start with that. Key matchup outcomes. Last week, I did a segment of key matchups for week 17. I'm following up this week on all of those matchups that I told you. If you didn't watch my video last week, go watch it now before you watch this one. But anyway, here we go. For the people that did watch, Ravens beat the Steelers 28-10. Like I said, this was a physical game. I don't think the score indicates how close it was. Some of the Ravens starters didn't play. Mason Rudolph was out. It was Devlin Hodges, no Marquise Pouncey, no James Conner for Pittsburgh either. But Ravens Steelers are going to be Ravens Steelers. It's going to be a physical game, and that's exactly what it was. And don't let the score 28-10 fool you, because these two teams played each other tough. But anyway, Ravens run game dominated this game. Gus Edwards, Justice Hill, and RG3 absolutely took this game over and was running through that Steelers defense. 233 yards on the ground, and Justice Hill got a touchdown. Steelers passing game struggled bad. 95 yards passing. Their running game was good, but Devlin Hodges was under duress all game. I think it being wet and throwing a wet ball really affected him, and he just never seemed to get into a rhythm at all. He struggled for most of the game. Steelers will miss the postseason for 2019 season, 2020 postseason. Tennessee won, so even if they would have won, they still wouldn't have made it into the playoffs. Next up on the docket, the Dolphins beat the Patriots in Foxborough in surprising fashion, 27-24. This was another good game. Started off 10-0 in the Dolphins' favor, and the Patriots ended up turning around. It was a little back and forth, but I got to give credit to Ryan Fitzpatrick not folding under pressure on the road against that stout Patriots D, and the Dolphins defense holding up against that Patriots offense, which I know it isn't really all that, but I mean, the Dolphins defense is full of no names and who's, I guess, for lack of a better term, but I give them credit for the way they played on the road against the GOAT Tom Brady. The Patriots defense was awful. They allowed 403 yards of total offense from the Dolphins. No name running backs, Ryan Fitzpatrick a quarterback. Now they have a pretty good receiving core in my opinion with Devontae Adams, Albert Wilson, Mike Gesicki, Isaiah Ford. I think those guys they should keep them together, and they have some with them. But yeah, the Patriots defense struggled. Ryan Fitzpatrick had over 300 yards passing. He threw the game-winning touchdown, and he had a rushing touchdown. And most importantly, he didn't turn the ball over on the road against Bill Belichick's defense. So the Patriots will now get the 3rd seed because Kansas City won. Kansas City is the 2nd seed, so Kansas City and Baltimore will now have bye weeks. And the Patriots have to play the Tennessee Titans. They're hosting them now. Speaking of those Titans, they beat the Texans 35-14. Derrick Henry absolutely balled out, over 211 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. He was unstoppable. That man is a truck coming out the backfield. The Texans rested Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins, so that's why only 14 points. A.J. McCarron was in there, and DeAndre Carter was their leading passer. So Texans' chances weren't going to change whether they won or lost, so why risk your 2 best players getting hurt? Cowboys defeated the Redskins 47-16. Demolished them. I mean, I thought it'd be a little closer because it's a division game, and I like the Redskins' defense against the Cowboys' offense, but I'm also kind of not surprised. Dallas, however, won't make the playoffs because the Eagles beat the Giants 34-17, and the Eagles were in a winning-year-in situation, and the Giants needed to win and needed the Eagles to lose. But the Eagles clinched the division and the 4th seed. They'll host Seattle in the wild card round. Playoff game at home for the Eagles. So despite all the injuries and the early struggles they had, they really turned their season around. Ended up beating Dallas last week, beating the Giants this week, taking care of business, getting a win at home that they really needed. It was a must win. Now they'll have a home playoff game. And I'm just proud of them and Doug Peterson really is a good coach. He was able to rally them together and finish strong. We'll see what they do in the postseason. I think that's going to be a really good game between them and Seattle and Philly. That's going to be a real showdown. Speaking of Seattle, I know we all tuned in to Sunday Night Football to watch them and the 49ers duke it out for all the crazy NFC seedings, which I also went over my last video, and who's going to take that division ultimately. San Francisco won that game 26-21. Seattle was down 19-7 coming into the middle of the third, I believe. And they eventually got it to be, what was that? Yeah, they eventually caught up. Final score is 21-26, but they overcame that deficit of being down by 12 points. Lynch had 12 carries for 34 yards and a touchdown. I mean, he did look kind of rusty and stiff, but it's his first game in over a year, and it's against the 49ers defense, so what you expect. I think that touchdown run was pretty impressive, how he was able to jump up like that. He had some real ups on that one. I think he still has some of that power and burst, because he did truck a couple guys, and, you know, some of those carries, I know some of them guys felt that and probably still are feeling that to this day. So I think he'll get better as the postseason goes on. That's assuming Seattle keeps winning. But for a 33-year-old running back who ain't paid no V, I thought it was pretty all right, pretty cool for what I seen. Seattle lost on the final play, as we all saw. Jacob Hollister was short on the goal line. 49ers take the division in the number 1 seed, and they'll have home field throughout. Now that brings me to my next segment, because you know I'm good with my segues and you know how I transfer. You know, I'm real good with that. The end of Seattle versus the 49ers, the end of that game, that last drive. Seattle started that drive with 1:46 on the clock at their own 47. I'm sorry, the 49ers 47. And they had 2 timeouts. Russell Wilson ended up connecting with John Ursa to make a 1st and goal under 35 seconds left. They ended up having to clock the ball, and then it was kind of like a debacle and they had to take a delayed game, so it backed them up to their own 7. He ended up spiking the ball. Wilson threw 2 incompletions, and then 4th and goal, which one of those completions, which I would get to, was one to Jacob Hollister, which was the missed PI holding, whatever you want to call it. But it was 4th and goal. He throws it to Jacob Hollister. Fred Warner, one of the other defensive backs, tackles him short of the goal line now. I don't know what anybody else saw, but what I saw, that ball was short. It was close. It was real close. He almost got it over the goal line. I will say that it was real close, but ultimately that was, he didn't get it. It was short. It was a great defensive play by the two 49ers defenders. I think Hollister really did make a good, strong effort to get over there, but it wasn't good enough. And the 49ers ultimately won that game, won that goal line stand. I will say this, that the referees did blow that call. They did. That was, in my opinion, defensive pass interference and holding. Should have been 1st and goal Seattle. I just hate saying that they would have ended up winning, because you don't know. This is the NFL. All types of crazy things happen. It could have been another situation where they throw it instead of running. Wilson throws another pick. Could have been a fumble snap on a handoff. Could have been, one of the 49ers defenders jumps over the line and strips the ball. Like, you never know. I just hate assuming just because they would have got the call and it would have been 1st and goal on the 1-yard line doesn't mean they necessarily would have scored. And I'm also a believer in you need to put teams away so it doesn't come down to the referees costing you or not costing you a game. You shouldn't leave the game in the hands of referees and some of the calls they're making. And we all can agree that penalty calls in the NFL this year have been trash and very inconsistent, and the NFL said that they're going to definitely investigate all of that and all of the referees that have refereed NFL games this season. It's the 100th season, but I will say the NFL referees have been garbage. They have been missing calls left and right. We saw the PI at the beginning of the year, like being able to challenge that didn't really mean nothing because they were just denying it and keeping their rulings the same. So, yeah, there's that, but I don't think you should leave the game in the hands of the referees and for them to make the call for you. I think you need to put teams away early. I said this last year for the Saints and the Rams in the NFC Championship game when they missed that PI on Kyle Roby-Coben. The Saints still had a chance to win that game in overtime, and they still had other times on that drive to score a touchdown. So that's why, again, I wouldn't really assume that the Saints are supposed to win that game just because of one blown call. You're supposed to put teams away, and you're supposed to finish games on your own and, seal things up for yourself. But that's just my opinion. Anywho, yeah, the referees blew that call, and Seattle is now the 5th seed, and they'll have to go to Philadelphia. Next on the ticket, number 3, coaching changes. We've seen a lot already. Usually the last game of the season and leading up to it, we see coaches get fired and hired and front office members get fired and hired. But so far we have the Washington Redskins have officially hired Ron Rivera as their new head coach. I like this move. I think it's a smart one. I think Carolina gave up on him a little too soon. And I can't wait to see what he does with that Redskins defense, who I haven't made it a secret that I like them a lot. And I think that they have a lot of potential and they're young. I can't wait to see what he does with them. He brought on Jack Del Rio as his DC, which I think is a really smart move. Jack Del Rio is a proven defensive commodity in this league. He's a smart defensive mind. He retains Kevin O'Connell as his offensive coordinator. I guess this has to do with the young guys they have, Dwayne Haskins, Terry McLaurin, Steven Sims, keeping them, as a cohesive unit or whatever and keeping them in the same system. I guess that's what that means. I mean, I would have personally tried to get someone else, but we'll see how it works out. The Lions have parted ways with 6 of their assistant coaches. The Dolphins fired their former offensive coordinator and offensive line coach and brought in Chan Gailey as their offensive coordinator. He used to coach the Bills. So I wonder if that means he was coaching the Bills when Ryan Fitzpatrick was there. So I wonder if that means they're going to keep him another year and potentially marry them two again. I think that would be smart. Either they want to keep Josh Rosen and develop him some more, let him sit and learn some more, or a rookie. I would keep Josh Rosen personally. I think there's something there. I think there's some potential to tap into, but I doubt Miami keeps him. He'll probably be on the move, but I think maybe Chan Gailey will push for Ryan Fitzpatrick to return for one more year. We'll see. Cliff Kingsbury said he'll bring back Vance Joseph, his defensive coordinator, from 1 year in 2020. Cardinals defense was a young, inexperienced group. They didn't have Patrick Peterson for a few games due to suspension, so we'll see what he can do with another offseason to install his system and take over and really put his fingerprint on his defense. I think he's another good defensive mind, so we'll see how that works. The Giants fired head coach Pat Shurmur. I was kind of shocked by that because he had gotten the best out of Daniel Jones and Saquon, but we'll see how that works. And the Browns fired Freddie Kitchens, which that didn't surprise me at all. I don't see why they hired him as their offensive coordinator anyway. I mean, yeah, they had a good stretch offensively last season, but it wasn't against that many good teams, and it was only because Baker Mayfield had success. I would have kept Greg Williams as the head coach. I think a lot of that really had to do with him because their defense was playing pretty good too. But again, that's just my opinion. We'll see. Number 2. Now again, the first top 5 I put out, which I want you to go check out also so you can call me out. I put out a mid-season superlative award of who I thought was going to win the mid-season award. So go back and check out my first top 5 so you can compare now and, let me know what you think and tell me yours. And tweet the Al Report or go on Instagram or the Facebook and comment your regular season awards. But that's what my number 2 segment is about, the regular season awards. Offensive Rookie of the Year, I'm going to have to go with the running back from Oakland, Josh Jacobs. He had 242 carries, 1,150 yards, 7 touchdowns, 4.8 yards a pop, and another 20 catches for 166 yards. He was the engine that drove the Oakland Raiders offense. Didn't play every game and still had over 1,100 yards rushing. I think that they really hit on this guy drafting him, and he didn't really have a lot of carries in college, so he really surprised me with how well he was able to run the ball and have all these carries and still have production. I mean, yeah, he was a little banged up, but I think he'll get healthy this offseason. He'll come back better than ever, but I think his rookie year, he really put it together, and he looked good. He looked experienced, and he didn't look like a rookie at all. I think he should be Rookie of the Year, despite missing a couple games. And I'm going to go back to the Oakland 2019 draft class. Max Crosby, defensive end, 46 tackles, 16 tackles for a loss, 10 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, and 4 pass deflections, 14 QBs. This guy was a late-round draft pick, wasn't even expected to start. Everybody thought that Clelin Ferrell would be the presence off the edge. He was their top 5 pick. He didn't have nearly half the production that this guy had. We noticed him in Hard Knocks. He was jumping off screen in Hard Knocks. We fell in love with the character and the football player. He got hurt, toughed it out, still made the team, still managed to have a starting job, and he's been consistently balling this whole season. And I think he should win Defensive Rookie of the Year, and I think he should have been a Pro Bowler too. He's going to be a stud in this league to come, and hopefully Clelin Ferrell can catch up to his production and they both can grow together, because they'll have two presence coming off the edge up there in Oakland. Well, Vegas coming up. So, and I looking forward to see John Gruden coach him and Clelin Ferrell up together and make these guys two forces in the league. Because the Broncos have Von Miller, the Chargers got Joey Bosa and Melvin Ingram, the Chiefs got Frank Clark and Chris Jones. Now the Raiders got these two guys, and they really needed a pass rushing force after losing Khalil Mack, because ever since he's been gone, their pass rush has been god-awful. So they need it. Offensive Player of the Year, shouldn't surprise nobody, Christian McCaffrey. This guy he's literally been the Panthers' offense. I don't think they would have won any games, maybe 1 or 2, but not more than 2 without him. He's been the engine and the driving force of their offense. Teams consistently game plan this guy, but he still managed to have a ton of production. 287 carries, 1,387 yards, and 15 touchdowns. Then he had another 116 touches through the air, 1,005 yards and 4 touchdowns. Has more yards rushing than most running backs and more receiving yards than most receivers. This is some starting receivers that didn't even crack 1,000 yards, but this guy did coming out of the backfield. He's the 3rd player ever since Roger Craig and Marshall Faulk. Marshall Faulk's a Hall of Famer, and Roger Craig might get in there one day. He won some Super Bowls with San Francisco, but he's the 3rd player besides them two to have 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving. This guy has been ultra productive for Carolina, and I know he's looking forward to some much needed rest, because he pass blocking, running, and catching, they definitely wore his body down this season. So I think it should culminate for him though, getting Offensive Player of the Year. He got selected to the Pro Bowl. It's a shame he's not going to be able to take that production into the postseason with him, but he's got the Pro Bowl, and I think he should get Offensive Player of the Year. He probably will too. Defensive Player of the Year, Shaq Barrett, the linebacker from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This guy was unstoppable all season, and he must have really been learning and paying attention when he was in Denver behind Bradley Chubb and Von Miller, because this guy was bull rushing, spinning, chopping. His pass rushing arsenal is fire. He's getting off the edges, beating all of these tackles, some of them Pro Bowlers. 19.5 sacks, 37 QB hits, 58 tackles, 19 tackles for a loss. He had a pick, 6 forced fumbles, and a pass deflection. This guy was an absolute monster coming off the edge for Tampa Bay, and I think that he should be Defensive Player of the Year. My comeback Player of the Year, Cooper Kupp. Messed his knee up last season, came back this year, 94 catches, 9th in the league, 1,161 yards, 12th in the league, and tied for 2nd with 10 touchdowns. He is an absolute beast coming out the slot. We've seen him, with the exception of the Pittsburgh game, week in and week out, carving these defenses and being a security blanket for Jared Goff. This guy is going to be a real force in this league, and I think that Jared Goff really appreciates having him around, and they really need to make sure they keep him around, because Goff is a much better passer when he's on the field, and Cooper Kupp is, in my opinion, a top 10, top 15 wide receiver. He should get Comeback Player of the Year award. Coach of the Year, I'm going to have to give it to John Harbaugh, and not just because I'm a Ravens fan, but this guy transcended the league. He went against the grain throughout all of the traditional stereotypes and all the things you should do with an offense and with a quarterback. And he went all in on his quarterback, and he developed an offense and a team and a personality to fit his quarterback. And this team really rallied around him and Lamar Jackson. And their defense really stepped up. They were kind of shaky the first 3-4 games. They went out and made some additions and some subtractions, and they put it together and ended up, after going 2-2, winning 12 straight, clinching their division and a first round bye. And it's large part due to Coach Harbaugh. 14-2, best record in the NFL. He broke the league's rushing record. His team broke the league's rushing record, and he has 12 Pro Bowlers on the roster, which is really a credit to coaching. That's what these coaches want to see, their players shine and get national success, and that's exactly what he had. And he's coaching a team that just had oozing with swagger, that's change the city of Baltimore. I'm from Baltimore. I live here. The Ravens are definitely like the hot topic here now, and it hasn't been like that in a while. But Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson really changed the culture, and they're really making history this season. And I think they're going to go far in the postseason, but we ain't get there yet. It's the regular season, and I think overall, regular season best coach of the year is unarguably and undisputedly John Harbaugh, and not just because of Lamar Jackson's MVP season, but because of the record and overall performance of the team, going up against Tom Brady, Deshaun Watson, going in LA on Monday night against the Rams and just blowing these teams out week in and week out. And it's not just the starters, it's the backups. We see the game that RG3, Justice Hill, and Gus Edwards had against the Steelers in their defense. And this team is just a very disciplined, healthy team. You don't hear anything about them off the field, off-field distractions. None of the players are getting in trouble or anything. This guy runs a tight ship, and these players really love and respect him. So Harbaugh gets my pick for Coach of the Year. I mean, MVP, do I really got to say it? We all know who my pick for MVP is. Number 8, Lamar Jackson. This guy had one of the most magical seasons ever. 176 carries, 1,206 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Shattered Michael Vick's rushing record in 15 games. And you could argue 13, 14 worth of production because he was benched in the third quarter for some of these games that he blew teams out, and there was no point keeping him around for health reasons. 265 completions out of 401 attempts, 3,127 yards, 66.1 completion percentage, 81 QB rating, 36 touchdowns to only 6 picks. He doesn't turn the ball over. He plays smart football. He's accurate. He's going to get even better. Running the ball, he's better than most running backs. This guy was an absolute force. The Baltimore Ravens don't win 13 games without number 8 under center. He was unquestionably the leader of this team and this year's MVP, regular season MVP. We'll see what he does in the postseason because last year, he was rookie and inexperienced, but the first 3 quarters against the Chargers at home, he didn't look good. He ended up almost putting it together in the fourth quarter, and we seen flashes. And in hindsight, I guess that was a preview of what was to come, but we'll see how he does in the playoffs. But based off his regular season performance, this guy is definitely the MVP. It was a neck-and-neck race between him and Russell Wilson at first, but Wilson's production dropped and Lamar's kept going up, so Lamar should definitely get MVP. Number 1 on my list, key playoff matchup to watch. I'm going to do this every week, too. I'm going to sing a lot of playoff games that I think will probably be the best one and the most interesting. And this week, I'm picking the Vikings at the Saints. They play Sunday, January 5th at 1 o'clock in New Orleans. Like I said, what I want to see is how the leaky Vikings defense handles Mike Thomas. The Vikings secondary hasn't been that good this year. They've been actually awful. Xavier Rhodes, their best corner, is taking a step back. His production has dropped. Harrison Smith, his production is still there, but, he's a safety. He's following the ball, and they drop him down in the box. So I'm interested to see how their secondary handles Mike Thomas, the league's leading receiver this season in catches and yards. I also want to see how healthy Dalvin Cook is and how he looks and how he does against that stout front 7 that the Saints have. Their linebackers and their D-line, I like them better than the Vikings O-line and tight ends, and I think they'll end up out-physicaling them. But Dalvin Cook is just a beast coming out the backfield. He can break tackles. He's elusive. He can catch. He's fast. I can't wait to see how he looks against this Saints defense because we've seen him do pretty good against dominant front 7s and it not phase him. So this I'm interested to see. I think it's going to be a real chess match between a great offensive mind in Sean Payton and a great defensive mind in Mike Zimmer. And I can't lie, I know the Saints are thinking about the Minneapolis Miracle when Stephon Diggs ran down the sideline for the game-winning touchdown. I know this is in the back of their minds, and I know they want that revenge factor of putting the Vikings out of the playoffs and spoiling their season. I don't think Kirk Cousins will be able to handle going on the road in New Orleans in a playoff atmosphere. I don't think he'll be able to handle it. I think the moment will be too big for him. So I'm ultimately predicting the Saints to win this game 35-20. I don't think it's going to be a close one at all, but we'll see. I think the Saints will have revenge on their mind, and I think they're hungry after 2 heartbreaking losses back-to-back. I think they're really going to try to make a push this year, and I can't wait to see these two teams go at it. So that's my key matchup. As always, I'm breaking it every week. Happy New Year. Everybody be safe. Turn up. Keep supporting us in 2020. I hope we get more support. I hope we get more of y'all friends and family. We want the comments. We want the likes. We want the follows. We want all that feedback. Keep tuning in every week. We're going to keep putting out content. The Al report on everything. This is my top 5. Once again, Happy New Year. I'm out.